Oh man, I'm so excited. I just got done doing this video interview with this guy named Richard Vague, who I'll share some information with you here in just a second. I'll post a video up later tonight. Man, this is what having a YouTube channel is weird, and having some books, out there, it just gives you a little bit of street cred. Where if you reach out to people, they'll be more inclined to be interviewed, frankly. And it's fantastic. So the guy I just talked to is an original bankster. No, just goofing, but he's a good guy, Richard Vague, from Houston, Idva, Houston, lives in Center City, Philly right now, and he was in banking industry, and then he went to oil and gas, and man, I learned a lot from this guy. I learned a lot, and I don't think he subscribed to my crazy politics, that's for sure. But man, there's so much just data out there that for some reason a lot of people don't know, and I'm not sure why that is. I think it's just time constraints. Because so he was telling me, I did not know this. OPEC. Let me just read you something here real quick. This is from his article. I'll show you. Man, dude, I love this job. I just love learning. I love hearing the other opinions I had never thought before, and it's just great. So this is from this guy's article, "The Truth About Government Debt." Is a Texan. But he lives in Philly. Very, just a good guy to talk to, fun. But he's pretty big wig in there. You know what I'm saying? He's pretty big wig, that's for sure. But anyway, the truth out about government debt, and I'm going to written in May 4th, 2023. Anyway, so he says, this is from that article. Our exaggerated fear of inflation comes from the 70s and 80s when OPEC led a tenfold increase in the price of oil. Inflation reached a 15% annual rate, and interest rates climbed close to 20%. It was in this context that many economists made dire predictions about the likely consequences of high levels of money supply and government debt growth. They warned that high government debt would constrain spending, crowd out lending and investment, lead to higher interest rates and inflation. Since then, government debt growth and money supply have exploded, and so have ample opportunity to put these predictions to test. As it turns out, over this very 40-year period, interest rates have generally plummeted, not risen, even with a recent rise. Investment has remained high, has not been constrained, and household net worth has risen, not shrunk. Our current inflation has been caused by global supply chain issues related to COVID and supply disruptions in such commodities as oil, gas, and wheat brought on by the war in Ukraine. Our current inflation trends have more to do with the war than with the Fed. If history is any guide, inflation will decline as these special circumstances abate. 100%. I'm going to read you something else here too. Check this out. In fact, since the debt to GDP ratio is now twice what it was during Paul Volcker's 1980s, interest rate increases have twice as much braking power over the economy as it did now. So basically, our debt to GDP is twice as high as what it was when Volcker raised the interest rates to, was it 18.5%, 20% for short term, which his concern is the massive increase in interest rates could have a big impact on economic expansion because we've raised it we have so much more debt out there. And I was reading this article too, like the cost of service of debt is through the roof. So we could have a significant break in. He's not predicting that. He's just saying it could. He's not a negative Nelly like, oh, we're all going to die. Not like that at all. But he does say, even though there are reasons for concern about rising debt, especially its implications for inequality, the government debt we are incurring is not piling up for future generations. And why is it not piling up for future generations? I will share with you why that is. Hold on just a second, right here. Household net worth increases at a rate faster than the government net worth declines. So when government takes on debt, they're decreasing their net worth, right? They're having a liability to the balance sheet. A great article, man, because he talks about balance sheets versus income sheets and whatnot. So again, household net worth increases at a faster rate than the government net worth declines, although that path is often bumpy. And for the oft-repeated concern that the federal debt, now at $31 trillion, is at a level that our children and grandchildren will never be able to pay, the reality is that households already have that $31 trillion. They received it as the government was spending it. It's part of the $148 trillion in net worth that households had as of December 2022. So if we have a $32 trillion U.S. debt and the households have a $150 trillion asset, we have a 5-to-1 ratio in terms of assets to debt. We could easily pay off. I mean, look, it's stupid. We're never going to be paid off. But the idea that we're going to, so you're going to leave it to your kids and grandkids. Are your kids and grandkids not going to inherit any of that $150 trillion of assets? Of course they are. Of course they are. And let me just keep going on. I thought this is interesting. Check this out. 1950 to 2021, U.S. household net worth grew from 376% of GDP to 654% of GDP, while federal government net worth declined from negative 43% to negative 88% of GDP. This trend was particularly pronounced after something I call the Great Debt Explosion, which started under Ronald Reagan. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Let's keep going. Inflation is not a monetary phenomenon. In other words, it's not a function or artifact of the Fed putting copious amounts of money into the economy. For the 47 largest countries in the world where we have sufficient data, there have been only 30 instances where money supply doubled in 5 or fewer years. All right, so again, for the 47 largest countries in the world where we have sufficient data, there have only been 30 instances where money supply doubled in 5 or fewer years. Of those 30 instances, only 7 were followed by inflation, meaning that 3/4 of the time, high money supply growth was not followed by high inflation. Further, high inflation has often not been preceded by high money supply growth. So we have high inflation without the high monetary money supply, M2. Anyways, what's crazy and interesting is that, do you know, I did not know this, that Nixon put price caps or regulated what you could pay for oil. I don't want to say, to basically drill for oil. Nixon did. So basically, there is price caps on your ability to extract oil from the ground. So OPEC puts a 10 times, basically the price of a barrel of oil went from 30 to like 50, as Richard was saying, in the 70s, all right, because OPEC was reducing their supply. In the same time, Nixon, that freaking fool, was putting limits on supply here for exploration because they had limits on what you could get for your dollar to extract oil from the ground. It's crazy. You know what Reagan did? He deregulated that. Deregulated. So Reagan comes in, deregulates it, and all of a sudden there's more oil than we know what to do with. What happens then? Inflation drops like a brick in water. As always, inflation is always and everywhere an energy phenomenon. And now we have massive speculation in Houston, which led to the O&G, oil and gas, boom and bust of the mid 80s, mid to late 80s in Texas. And whereas after that, you couldn't even take a home equity line of credit if you had more than 70% loan to value on your home. All right, so Texas that's been in trance and law for basically 40 years. You can't, I guess, but you can't borrow more than 70% of the value of your home in Texas because of what happened in the 80s. There's so much rampant speculation, private debt. Anyways, I learned a lot from this guy about the gold standard. It's fantastic. It's just a great interview, man. And I'm going to put his books. He's got books on the paradox of debt, which I highly suggest you buy. I'll do an email about this too. I haven't bought it yet and read it, but I'm very much excited. So I'm going to buy it here today. And just a great guy, man. You should subscribe to his YouTube channel, Tycho's. I just freaking is awesome. I appreciate you being here because if you weren't here, I wouldn't be allowed to do this. If I had 500 subscribers, very, very few people would want to be interviewed by me. But if I have 50,000 subscribers, more do. If I have 100,000 subscribers, so tell your friends, more will as well. And it's just fun, man. All right, love your thoughts. We'll see you.